What if I told you that in today's world, stupidity isn't just tolerated, it's rewarded, monetized, and glorified? That in our current culture, being loud, shallow, and proudly ignorant has somehow become a fast track to influence, power, and even leadership. And this isn't an exaggeration. It's the uncomfortable truth of the age we're living in. Think about it. When was the last time you saw a genuine, deep-thinking trend on social media? When did a nuanced, carefully argued perspective go viral? Compare that to the endless clips of exaggerated reactions, meaningless pranks, or influencers flaunting lifestyles that are curated but empty. The reality is clear. We now live in a culture where the shallow rises to the surface and dominates, while depth quietly sinks into obscurity. Once, intellectual life had a place in society. Debates were held in public forums. Thinkers, philosophers, scientists, even writers shaped cultural conversations. Public dialogue wasn't perfect, but it meant something. It was about wrestling with ideas, exploring contradictions, and searching for truth. Now, that stage has been replaced by the algorithm, by the endless scroll, by platforms designed not to cultivate wisdom, but to capture attention at any cost. Today, 15-second clips gain more traction than thoughtful essays. Sarcastic memes outperform carefully researched articles, and personalities with nothing to say except shock value attract more followers than people dedicating their lives to real understanding. And here's the disturbing part. This isn't just a cultural accident. It's not a passing trend. It's a systemic shift. Modern entertainment, modern media, modern politics, everything is geared toward making ignorance profitable. We've built an entire ecosystem where empty entertainment is valued more than intellectual substance, where being entertaining is more important than being informed, where virality matters more than truth. Ask yourself this: when did we start confusing noise with knowledge? When did visibility become more important than value? This shift didn't happen overnight. It's been building for decades. Writers like Neil Postman warned us back in the 1980s in Amusing Ourselves to Death that television and entertainment-driven media would erode public discourse. He argued that the danger wasn't censorship, but distraction, that we drown not in tyranny, but in trivia. And if Postman could see the world today, an endless flood of shallow content optimized for clicks and shares, he'd probably say, "This is exactly what I warned you about." But let's be honest, stupidity isn't just surviving, it's thriving, because we, the audience, keep rewarding it. The algorithm doesn't care about truth. It doesn't care about honesty or accuracy. It only cares about one thing: attention. Whatever grabs it, whatever hooks it, whatever keeps you scrolling, that's what gets promoted. And what hooks us the fastest? Not philosophy, not complexity, not difficult questions, but emotions, outrage, humor, shock, envy, lust, sarcasm, anything that bypasses thinking and taps directly into feeling. This is why so many of today's influencers and even politicians deliberately perform stupidity. Acting dumb, oversimplifying everything, or even faking ignorance has become a strategy. Why? Because it works. Because it sells. Because in a world where attention equals money, the person who can play dumb convincingly often wins bigger than the person who is actually intelligent. Look at the YouTube thumbnails screaming with exaggerated faces. Look at TikTok trends where the joke is simply being clueless. Look at political campaigns that speak in catchphrases instead of policies. None of this is an accident. It's a reflection of incentives. The culture rewards shallowness, so shallowness becomes the performance. This is what Carl Jung might call a cultural shadow, a part of ourselves we don't want to face, now projected outward and amplified. We like to believe we're rational, thoughtful beings, but in truth, we crave the simple, the easy, the entertaining, even when it costs us truth. The glorification of stupidity is not just about them, the influencers, the celebrities, the leaders. It's about us, about what we click on, what we share, what we elevate. And the result is devastating. We are slowly training ourselves in the next generation to think less, to avoid complexity, to dismiss nuance, to see intelligence as boring, elitist, or even threatening. Let me give you a chilling example. Conspiracy theories. They spread faster online than peer-reviewed studies, not because they're accurate, but because they're simple. They're emotional. They're easy to digest. Truth is complicated. Lies are fast. And in a world addicted to dopamine, the fast and the easy always win, unless we consciously resist. So here's the question we need to sit with. What happens to a society when stupidity stops being mocked and starts being monetized? What happens when ignorance isn't a flaw but a brand? What happens when being loud matters more than being right? The answer is already unfolding before us. We get a world where leaders perform more than they govern, where news becomes entertainment, where influencers rise not for what they create, but for how outrageous they can be. A world where the shallow don't just survive, they win. And make no mistake, once stupidity becomes a viable strategy, it spreads. People copy it. It becomes normalized. It becomes expected. And eventually it becomes dangerous. Because when the shallow dominate, the wise are silenced. When ignorance is rewarded, intelligence is punished. And when the culture celebrates stupidity, stupidity stops being harmless. It becomes powerful. In the next part, we're going to go even deeper. We'll look at why this is happening, not just culturally, but psychologically. Why is shallow content so irresistible? Why do we crave it even when we know it's empty? And why does the brain reward ignorance over depth? Stay with me, because understanding this isn't just about media, it's about reclaiming your own mind in a world that profits from keeping you shallow. Let's go deeper. Why is shallow content not just surviving, but thriving? Why does it feel almost irresistible to scroll past the serious and dive headfirst into the silly, the sensational, the stupid? The truth is, it's not only cultural. It's not only about algorithms or media companies. It's also deeply psychological. Our own brains are wired to crave the shallow, and unless we understand why, we'll never be able to resist it. Think about your daily routine for a second. You wake up, maybe you check your phone before even leaving bed. Notifications, reels, short clips, memes, instant stimulation before your brain has even had time to stretch. Why do you think that feels so good? It's dopamine, a hit of instant pleasure, no effort, no thinking, just a quick reward. This is why shallow content spreads like wildfire. It doesn't just entertain, it satisfies a biological craving. Quick, easy, emotionally charged information feels good. A sarcastic tweet, a funny meme, a flashy TikTok, all of these hit the brain like fast food. Quick, salty, greasy, addictive. And just like junk food, the more we consume it, the harder it becomes to crave anything nourishing. Compare that to picking up a book, or listening to a lecture, or even just sitting in silence and reflecting. At first it feels slow, heavy, boring even. Why? Because wisdom requires effort. Depth requires attention. Truth demands patience. And patience is something our dopamine-driven brains don't like to wait for anymore. Psychologists call this the fluency effect. The easier something is to process, the more we believe it. When information feels smooth, simple, effortless, we instinctively trust it, even if it's false. And when something feels complex, challenging, or unfamiliar, we're more likely to dismiss it. Our brains are designed to conserve energy. Thinking deeply feels like work, so we avoid it. Now imagine living in a world where billions of dollars are invested in making sure everything you see is easy, where algorithms are engineered to deliver content that requires no effort, no patience, no friction. In that kind of environment, wisdom never even gets a chance. But there's something even darker happening here. Shallow content doesn't just feel easy. It gives us a sense of control. Think about it. Life today is overwhelming. The economy feels uncertain. Technology moves faster than we can keep up. Global crises, climate change, pandemics, wars, leave us feeling small and powerless. In a world that feels confusing and uncontrollable, the shallow offers a temporary illusion, the illusion that we understand. A meme that makes fun of politics is easier to process than actually studying policy. A conspiracy video offers more certainty than scientific research. A short, emotional rant feels more digestible than a long, complex explanation. The shallow simplifies the world for us. It tells us, don't worry about the big picture. Just laugh, Just react, just feel. That's why so much of modern humor is ironic, sarcastic, dismissive. It's not that everything is funny, it's that laughter is easier than thinking. Irony becomes armor, sarcasm becomes currency, and real engagement, real reflection, becomes rare. And let's not forget biology. Every swipe, every like, every view pumps dopamine into our system. That's the same chemical that drives addiction. We're literally training our brains to crave shallowness, to associate complexity with discomfort and simplicity with reward. This is why long-form content feels harder and harder to consume. A 3,000-word essay feels like a mountain. A thoughtful documentary feels like homework. But a 10-second clip? That's easy. That's fun. That's rewarding right now. And here's the catch. The more shallow content we consume, the more shallow content we crave. Our brains adapt. Our attention spans shrink. What once felt normal, reading, reflecting, listening, now feels unbearable. And that's not just about entertainment. It seeps into everything, into education, into work, into relationships, into politics. People stop wanting to wrestle with complexity. They start preferring simple slogans, easy answers, emotional sound bites. They start confusing clarity with truth. And in that environment, depth becomes not only difficult, but unwanted. Carl Jung warned us about this. He said that when people are overwhelmed by complexity, they regress into the primitive, the simple, the instinctual. That's what's happening now on a massive cultural scale. We are regressing, not because we are stupid, but because the system rewards our simplest instincts. And the system knows this. Social media platforms are designed to exploit those instincts. They don't care about nuance. They don't care about truth. They care about one thing, keeping you scrolling. And what keeps you scrolling isn't philosophy. It isn't nuance. It's laughter, outrage, envy, lust, anger. The primal emotions that bypass thought. This is why lies spread faster than truth. Why shallow influencers outperform educators. Why politicians who shout louder win over those who think deeper. Because the shallow taps into our psychology at the most basic level. It gives us pleasure, it gives us certainty, it gives us distraction, and it asks nothing in return. But here's the most dangerous part. Once we train ourselves to prefer the shallow, wisdom begins to feel not only unnecessary, but uncomfortable. Complexity feels like a burden. Intelligence feels elitist. Thoughtfulness feels like weakness. And that's when stupidity stops being just an accident and starts becoming a weapon. In the next part, we're going to explore that weaponization. We'll look at how stupidity isn't just tolerated or celebrated, but strategically used. How ignorance has become a performance. How leaders, celebrities, and influencers deliberately play dumb because they know it works. Stay tuned. Because if part 1 was about how stupidity is celebrated, and part 2 explained why we crave it, then part 3 will show you how stupidity has become one of the most powerful strategies in modern culture. Now let's take this even further. It's one thing for stupidity to be tolerated. It's another for it to be celebrated. But today, we've reached the point where stupidity has become a strategy. Not an accident, not a side effect, but a weapon deliberately used by those who understand the game. Let's be clear. When I say stupidity, I don't mean the lack of intelligence. I mean the performance of ignorance. The act of pretending not to know. The choice to appear simple, unthreatening, or even foolish, while using that perception as power. Think about politicians. How many times have you seen leaders who play down their intelligence, who speak in sound bites, who reduce complex issues to 3-word slogans? Do you think that's because they can't understand nuance? Or is it because they know nuance doesn't sell? In a world addicted to the shallow, complexity is a liability. Simplicity wins votes. Outrage wins attention. Ignorance wins trust. History gives us plenty of examples. Ancient Rome had emperors who used spectacle, gladiator fights, bread distributions, public drama to distract the masses from political decay. They knew the people preferred entertainment over governance. Today, our spectacles aren't gladiators. They're viral clips, Twitter wars, reality shows, but the psychology is the same. Keep the masses shallow and you control them. The same applies in business. Many of the world's most influential figures deliberately underplay their intelligence. They act casual. They speak simply. They avoid sophistication. Why? Because sophistication alienates. Ignorance connects. It makes people feel comfortable. He's just like us. She's one of us. And in that comfort, people let down their guard. This is where stupidity transforms from an accident into a strategy. It's camouflage. The leader who acts foolish is underestimated. The influencer who plays dumb is seen as relatable. The celebrity who avoids complexity becomes lovable. Behind the mask of ignorance, power consolidates. Think about how effective this is. If you present yourself as an intellectual, you face resistance. People challenge you, test you, debate you. But if you present yourself as just a regular person, as someone who doesn't care about books or big words, you bypass that resistance. You gain trust. And with trust comes influence. This is why many influencers adopt a kind of anti-intellectual persona. They mock expertise, they laugh at education, they make intelligence look boring, irrelevant, or even pretentious. And in doing so, they win loyalty, not from the elite, but from the masses who feel ignored, disrespected, or left behind. And let's not ignore the financial incentives. Controversy sells, outrage spreads, simplicity gets clicks. The influencer who pretends to be clueless, who says wild things, who rejects evidence, often earns more attention than the careful expert who spends years studying. In this system, ignorance isn't a weakness, it's a marketing strategy. But the strategy isn't just about appearing ignorant, it's about weaponizing it. Here's how. Disarm critics. If you play dumb, people underestimate you. They don't take you seriously. That gives you room to maneuver. While they laugh at your ignorance, you're building influence behind the scenes. Create relatability. Acting ignorant makes you seem approachable. People don't feel judged, don't feel inferior. They trust you more because you speak their language. Stir emotions. Ignorance is provocative. It triggers outrage in the intelligent, which then amplifies your message. Every angry reaction, every debate, every "look how stupid this is" post spreads your reach even further. Simplify the complex. Ignorance allows you to ignore nuance, and ignoring nuance makes messages easy to spread. Instead of explaining climate change with science, you say, "It's a hoax." Instead of unpacking economics, you say, "They're stealing from you." The simple, the shallow, the ignorant, it spreads like fire. This is why ignorance has become one of the most effective weapons in the modern attention economy. It disarms, it connects, it enrages, it spreads. And here's the real danger. Once stupidity becomes a strategy, it stops being accidental. It becomes calculated. Leaders know exactly what they're doing. Influencers know exactly how to bait you. Celebrities know exactly how to play dumb. It's a mask, and behind the mask, the real game is being played. But what happens to a society where ignorance is not just tolerated, not just celebrated, but weaponized? You get a culture where lies travel faster than truth, where outrage drowns out nuance, where stupidity becomes not just a joke, but a form of control. We are living in that culture now, and the question is, what happens next? Because if stupidity can be weaponized, then it can also be monetized. It can be scaled, it can be turned into entire industries, and that's exactly what's happening. From reality TV empires to viral influencers, to political machines, stupidity is no longer just a quirk of culture, it's a product. And in part 4, that's what we're going to explore. How stupidity has been commodified, how ignorance is being packaged, sold and exported at massive scale, how entertainment has fused with stupidity to create one of the most profitable industries in human history. Stay with me, because if you think stupidity is just harmless fun, wait until you see how much money is being made from it. We've seen how stupidity can be celebrated. We've seen how it can be craved. We've seen how it can even be weaponized. But in this part, we take the gloves off. Because stupidity today is more than culture. It's more than psychology. It's more than politics. It's business. Big business. Think about it. Every major platform, every streaming service, every social network thrives on attention. And what grabs attention fastest? Not long debates. not nuanced discussions, not slow, thoughtful ideas. Number. What grabs attention are the outrageous, the ridiculous, the shallow, the stupid. That's why stupidity has become entertainment, not just a byproduct of it, the main attraction. Let's break it down. Open any social platform right now. What do you see trending? A celebrity saying something absurd, a viral prank that makes no sense, a staged drama between influencers, outrage clips, gotcha moments, fake feuds. This isn't an accident. This is the formula. Because in a world where attention equals money, stupidity sells better than intelligence. Outrage is profitable. Shock is profitable. Mockery is profitable. And the industry knows it. Look at reality TV. Entire billion-dollar franchises are built on amplifying stupidity. Shows where people argue, cheat, cry, embarrass themselves, all for the cameras. The more ridiculous the behavior, the higher the ratings. The more drama, the more views. Producers aren't looking for wisdom, they're hunting for stupidity they can monetize. Now translate that to the digital era. Social media has taken what reality TV pioneered and turned it into an endless machine. Platforms like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, they thrive on short, sensational content. The dumber, the funnier, the crazier. It doesn't matter if it's real or fake. What matters is, will you watch it? Will you share it? And here's the genius of the business model. It doesn't matter if you watch because you love it or because you hate it. Stupidity wins both ways. If you're laughing at it, you're spreading it. If you're outraged by it, you're spreading it. If you're mocking it, you're spreading it. Either way, the platforms profit. This is what I call the economy of stupidity. Ignorance has been packaged like a commodity. Outrage is harvested. Drama is staged. Foolishness is marketed. And we, the audience, are both the consumers and the distributors. And it's not just random influencers cashing in. Entire industries are designed to profit off stupidity. Tabloid journalism thrives on it. Clickbait news lives off it. Viral marketing strategies depend on it. Even politics now looks more like reality television than governance. Leaders know that if they say something outrageous, it will dominate the headlines, while serious issues are ignored. The business of stupidity is clever because it doesn't require quality. It doesn't require truth. It doesn't even require talent. It only requires attention. And attention is the currency of the 21st century. Let's pause here. Think about what that means. In the past, to gain influence, you needed wealth, land, armies, or years of study. Today, all you need is a smartphone, a wild idea, and the willingness to be outrageous. Stupidity has democratized fame. Anyone can go viral. Anyone can cash in. And the platforms encourage it. Why? Because stupidity is cheap to produce and fast to consume. A carefully researched documentary might take months and thousands of dollars to create. A ridiculous 15-second clip? That costs nothing and could generate millions of views overnight. This is why intelligence struggles in the modern marketplace. Wisdom is slow, stupidity is fast, intelligence divides, stupidity unites. Because everyone can laugh, mock, or react without needing to think. And so we enter a vicious cycle. The more stupidity gets rewarded, the more people create it. The more stupidity we consume, the more the algorithms push it. The more the algorithms push it, the more it dominates our culture. Now here's the part that should wake you up. Stupidity isn't just profitable, it's addictive. Just like junk food, just like gambling, just like drugs. Platforms deliberately design features, endless scrolling, autoplay, likes, shares, to keep you hooked. They study what makes you stop scrolling. They measure what makes you laugh, what makes you rage, what makes you click. Then they feed you more of it. Stupidity becomes the drug, and you become the addict. And this addiction has consequences, not just for individuals, but for society. Because when stupidity becomes the dominant form of entertainment, intelligence becomes invisible. Real issues, climate, inequality, philosophy, ethics, get buried under mountains of memes and viral nonsense. This is why people know more about celebrity scandals than about policies that shape their future. Why millions tune in for influencer drama, but ignore lectures that could change their lives. Why entire generations are growing up addicted to quick laughs but allergic to long thoughts. And the industry doesn't want this to stop, because stupidity is profitable. If wisdom doesn't make them money, why would they promote it? This is the harsh reality. Stupidity is no longer just a cultural accident. It's a business model, and it's working. But what happens when stupidity becomes more than entertainment? What happens when it becomes a way of life? When it starts shaping not just what we laugh at, but how we think, how we vote, how we live? That's where we're headed next. In Part 5, we'll explore the consequences, the fallout, how a society built on stupidity starts to collapse in on itself, how ignorance seeps into education, into leadership, into morality, until truth itself becomes impossible to find. Stay with me, because if you thought stupidity was harmless fun, Part 5 will show you how it slowly corrodes everything we depend on. We've seen how stupidity is celebrated. We've seen how it's craved. We've seen how it's weaponized. And in Part 4, we exposed how it's been turned into business. But here's the darkest part of all. Stupidity doesn't just stay on your screen. It doesn't just live in memes or clips. It seeps into everything. Our schools, our politics, our relationships, our culture. Slowly, stupidity begins to shape society itself. And when that happens, wisdom collapses. Let's talk about education first. Schools are supposed to prepare us for complexity, to teach us how to think, not just what to think. But what happens in a world addicted to shallow distraction? Students lose the ability to focus. Reading feels unbearable. Reflection feels boring. Teachers find themselves competing not with other educators, but with TikTok, with YouTube, with an entire digital circus designed to keep attention shallow. And so, classrooms change. Lessons become shorter, simplified, gamified. Testing becomes about memorization instead of reflection. And wisdom, the ability to wrestle with hard questions, gets lost. We end up with generations trained not for thought, but for consumption. Now look at politics. Politics thrives on sound bites. Leaders no longer speak in paragraphs, they speak in slogans. Complex policies are reduced to 3 words. Build the wall. Make it great. Stop the steal. Doesn't matter what side you're on, both left and right know the same rule. Nuance doesn't trend. Stupidity does. And so, voters are trained to respond emotionally, not rationally. They don't ask, is this policy effective? They ask, did this line make me feel good? Did it make me angry? Did it make me laugh? Politics becomes theater. Leaders become actors. And truth becomes irrelevant. Now let's talk about morality. When stupidity dominates culture, morality shifts. People stop asking, is this right? And start asking, is this entertaining? Outrage becomes a currency. Cancel culture thrives on quick judgment without reflection. Mockery becomes more powerful than empathy. People find it easier to ridicule than to understand. And once morality becomes shallow, justice follows. We start punishing people not because they are guilty, but because it feels satisfying. We start rewarding people not because they are virtuous, but because they make us laugh. Truth, fairness, and wisdom become secondary to spectacle. This is how entire societies collapse. Not in fire, not in war, but in stupidity. History gives us warnings. Ancient Rome fell not just because of invasions, but because the people cared more about bread and circuses than governance. The Weimar Republic collapsed in part because propaganda turned complexity into shallow slogans. Even great civilizations, when they lost their hunger for wisdom, slowly crumbled under the weight of their own ignorance. And here we are again. Today, stupidity doesn't just distract us, it divides us. Shallow culture polarizes everything. It tells us, if you don't laugh at what I laugh at, you're the enemy. If you don't get outraged at what I'm outraged by, you don't belong. Ignorance fuels tribalism. Tribalism fuels conflict. And conflict makes stupidity spread even faster. But let's zoom in. Let's make this personal. How does living in a culture of stupidity affect you? It makes patience harder. It makes deep work impossible. It makes relationships shallow. Conversations stop being about ideas and start being about gossip. Friendships revolve around memes instead of meaning. Families spend dinners scrolling instead of talking. Slowly we lose not just wisdom, but connection, and connection is everything. Without it, society doesn't just get dumber, it gets weaker. Loneliness rises, depression rises, anxiety rises. Because shallow culture gives us stimulation, but never nourishment. It keeps us laughing, but never fulfilled. This is why so many people feel empty, even while surrounded by constant entertainment. They're consuming, but not growing. They're watching, but not living. They're laughing, but not learning. And here's the final consequence. When stupidity rules, truth dies. We live in what some call a post-truth era. Lies spread faster than facts. Outrage spreads faster than research. And once truth becomes optional, everything becomes unstable. Science, law, morality, democracy, all of it depends on shared truth. Without it, collapse is inevitable. That's the danger of celebrating stupidity. It doesn't stay entertainment, it becomes a virus that eats away at education, politics, morality, connection, and truth itself. But here's the good news. Collapse is not destiny. Just because stupidity dominates doesn't mean wisdom is dead. It just means wisdom has been pushed into the shadows, and in the shadows it waits. In part 6, we'll talk about resistance, about how to live wisely in a world addicted to stupidity, about how to protect your mind, your attention, your dignity, when everything around you is designed to drag you down. Because wisdom isn't gone, it's rare, it's harder to find, but that rarity is what makes it powerful. We've walked through the celebration of stupidity. We've exposed the psychology that makes it addictive. We've unmasked it as a weapon, a business, and a cultural virus that weakens society. But now comes the final and most important question. What do you do about it? Because let's be honest, escaping stupidity is almost impossible. It's everywhere. It's in your feed. It's in your conversations. It's in your politics, your entertainment, your workplace. You can't live in this world and avoid it completely, but you can resist it. You can choose differently. You can build a kind of inner shield against the flood. So let's talk about resistance. Practical, everyday resistance. Not running away from the world, not hiding in a cave, but learning how to remain wise, calm, and sharp while living inside a culture that wants to make you shallow. The first step is control your attention. Attention is the currency of stupidity. Every click, every swipe, every share, you are feeding the system. That doesn't mean you need to delete every app or throw your phone into the ocean. It means you need to start asking, is this nourishing me or is this draining me? If a piece of content makes you laugh but leaves you empty, notice it. If you find yourself addicted to outrage, scrolling for the next thing to get mad at, notice it. Awareness breaks the spell, because the truth is, stupidity thrives when you consume unconsciously. The moment you become conscious of your consumption, you take power back. The second step is practice depth in small doses. We've been trained to think in seconds. That means wisdom feels like a chore. But you don't need to dive into a 500-page philosophy book tomorrow. Start small. 10 minutes of reading without your phone nearby. 10 minutes of journaling. 10 minutes of listening deeply to someone without interrupting. These small acts of depth retrain your brain. They remind you what focus feels like. And slowly they rebuild your capacity for wisdom. The third step is choose your influences carefully. Remember, stupidity spreads because it's contagious. If you surround yourself with shallow voices, shallow thinking, shallow conversations, you will become shallow too. But if you deliberately seek out depth, even in small doses, you'll grow. This might mean following creators who challenge you instead of just entertaining you, listening to podcasts that stretch your perspective, watching documentaries instead of endless clips, or even better, finding real mentors, people in your life who live with wisdom, and learning from them. The fourth step is embrace silence. This might sound strange, but silence is a weapon against stupidity. Stupidity thrives on noise, on constant stimulation. When you're always plugged in, you don't have space to think, to reflect, to ask, what do I actually believe? Take moments of silence seriously. Turn off the music, the podcasts, the background noise. Sit with your own mind. It will feel uncomfortable at first because you're detoxing from constant stimulation. But in silence, wisdom whispers. Clarity emerges. You realize that most of the noise around you doesn't matter. The fifth step is develop emotional discipline. Remember how stupidity spreads? Outrage, laughter, lust, envy, anger. These primal emotions bypass thought. If you can't control your emotions, you will always be controlled by stupidity. This doesn't mean becoming numb. It means becoming aware. Notice when content is trying to bait you into outrage. Notice when something is designed to shock you into a reaction. Instead of reacting instantly, pause. Ask, is this worth my energy? Is this worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer will be no. That pause, that discipline, protects you. And finally, the sixth step, become a source of wisdom yourself. It's easy to complain about stupidity. It's harder to live as the opposite. But here's the truth. Wisdom spreads too. Just slower, just quieter. If you want to resist the culture of stupidity, don't just avoid it, outshine it. Be the friend who asks thoughtful questions instead of gossiping. Be the colleague who speaks with clarity instead of sarcasm. Be the voice online that offers perspective instead of outrage. Even if only a few listen, you're planting seeds. And seeds grow. Because wisdom doesn't need to go viral to matter. Wisdom works differently. It's like water cutting through stone. Slow, patient, relentless. Over time, it shapes everything. So what's the final message? You are not powerless. Yes, stupidity is everywhere. Yes, it's profitable. Yes, it's addictive. But wisdom isn't gone. It's still here, waiting for those willing to choose it. Waiting for those willing to step out of the noise, to pause, to think, to reflect, to act with clarity instead of impulse. And if you do that, if you choose wisdom, even in small moments, you're not just protecting yourself. You're protecting culture. You're keeping the flame alive in an age trying to blow it out. So resist the shallow. Choose the deep. Laugh, yes, but don't let laughter replace thought. Consume, yes, but don't let consumption replace reflection. Engage, yes, but don't let outrage replace truth. The world will keep rewarding stupidity, but you don't have to. You can live differently. You can think differently. You can be different. And maybe that difference is exactly what the world needs right now.